KPI.org.
Hi, this is Farrah with the Datable Rebels. We are here talking about dating with mental illness today. And we have Daniel Goldschmidt, who is a Jewish white non-binary, socialized as a man person with generalized anxiety disorder, ADHD, and Ptsd. He's a music therapist working with teenagers in a partial
hospitalization program.
Thank you.
It's a lot.
Program. And teaches music therapists about white supremacy as a source of harm in our work, which is awesome. Daniel has been both monogamous and in polyamorous relationships. Welcome, Daniel. Palina Prasasouk. Did I fuck it up?
Prasasouk.
Okay, thank you. She, they, them is a first-generation immigrant from Asia, first-generation college graduate, double majoring in history and pre-law. She is diagnosed with bipolar disorder 1 with mixed episodes and generalized anxiety. She is 41 years old and single. I can't fucking talk today, you guys. Shit. Welcome, Palina.
Hi.
Hi. So we were just talking about dating and breaking up during the pandemic and do we have enough support? And then, having a mental illness, is there enough support with that?
Yeah, the isolation. I had a therapy session today, and my therapist was like, because I've been thinking about, dating with bipolar, and I've been thinking how there are so many other obstacles besides just having a mental illness. And then I was feeling not normal. I don't like using, describe myself as not normal. And I was like telling my therapist how I felt like it's not normal how hard I've been taking this recent breakup that I've had from like 2 weeks ago. I went outside today for the first time in 2 weeks. And usually, you feel better. I felt like I was dying inside. I just felt like my soul was crushing. And I was like, that's not a normal way to take a breakup. And he was saying that how I started this pandemic, like the relationship in January, feeling isolated already. And I'm still isolated after the breakup. I just feel like so alone.
Also, I was gonna, sorry. Well, from the things that you were telling me, it sounds like you might have been with a narcissist, which is also like a whole fuckery within itself. Like that's a narcissistic abuse is real.
I'm not sure though, because I've been studying a lot about, it's like relationships are like a death. Like when you break up, it's like you grieve and stuff. And I was like bargaining. Like I was like in denial first because he didn't break up with me. It was just a break. So I'm like trying to think, okay, he has moved on. He's found someone else. And now I was trying to be, bargaining like with myself, trying to hate him, find reasons to hate him. But he is actually a loving person. We still talk a lot, almost every day still. He still says he loves me. I felt loved during the relationship, and I still feel like he loves me. And I'm grateful for that, at least. I think everyone has a little bit of narcissism in them. Cause like me telling him like, no one's ever gonna love me. No one's ever gonna love you as much as I did. That's a little bit of narcissism there too. Like trying to like bring down the person to your level. That's what I learned. No, I don't think he's a narcissist. He's definitely an alcoholic though.
Yeah.
It sounds a lot like just some codependent patterns on both sides. And I've done that for years. I'm really working on it. But just like, especially in a pandemic, it's so easy to fall into this, like, I need you, you need me, we are together. Like the world is so hard. I'm sure when all these studies come out about the pandemic, I'd love to see like data on like codependency, like, because I would bet $1,000 that it's going to be much higher during the pandemic, you know, because where are we getting those good feelings? Where are we getting the dopamine and the oxytocin and the serotonin boosts, you know, not from the normal shit, you know, and like meds are cool and like going for a walk is nice, but like when you have something that works that easily and that effortlessly as someone you fall like immediately madly in like with, you know, it's tough to beat that. And so of course it's super painful when it stops. And of course it's super painful when, you know, the way you described it, he's saying something to you and basically setting boundaries on the relationship that he himself isn't keeping, which isn't fair, you know. And it's totally possible to love multiple people at once. It's totally doable. However, if it's not within the auspice of the rules that you set in your relationship, or whatever word you want to use, like that's painful and harmful, you know.
Yeah, when I found out he was, you know, how bad his alcoholism is, you know, told him, I was like, I don't want to fall into this same routine of becoming codependent, because I have been with another person that was codependent. So I was very careful of that. But then it's hard to do, like you said, it's hard to do that during a pandemic when you're isolated, when you have just one person that you're supposed to be with, because you can't, you know, swap spit with multiple people.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing with like codependence or any of these things, and this kind of goes also into the greater mental health conversation with dating, is that like I know for me, with the experiences I've had, and in the bio I didn't mention it, but I was in an abusive marriage, you know, which I learned a lot from. And I've had some other like traumatic stuff related to like intimacy and sexuality that I can have done all the work while I'm out here in single land. But then as soon as I'm on a date, as soon as I'm on a second date, as soon as like the first time we're being intimate, all that shit comes flooding back. And there's so many things you can't actually work on until you're in the saddle of a relationship. Yes. And it's so hard and so frustrating because I feel like I'm doing so well until that happens.
And then how do you like tell the other like I'm triggered as fuck? Like how do you deal with it? You know?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing where, you know, the hope is that, well, my hope with myself, and something I do feel like I've gotten better at, is testing the waters ahead of time. Like I was on a date the other night, and she was very nice, but I noticed that she didn't have a lot of language around mental health. She didn't have a lot of language around even gender and things like that. And that's fine. That's totally cool that she's on that. But like, I'm not going to like open up then. Like, I'm not going to like test the waters in a dangerous way. And so that was it. You know, I'm not going to go on another date with her. You know, the challenge is the people who have the language vastly are the people who are actively dealing with the same things. And so then you get into that place where, you know, you want to be with someone who's done enough work that you can safely date each other without being codependent, without trying to fix each other. Because I also have a savior, like I've had a savior complex in past relationships too, you know? And so it's a lot to navigate, and I don't know the answer. There's just this hope that someone has the language but has done enough work that it's not dangerous for me or them on my part.
Do you feel that your codependency is attributed to depression?
Gosh, I don't know. What's hard for me, honestly, if I were to attribute it to any of my diagnoses, I would put it with ADHD.
Anxiety.
But actually, because with ADHD, there's something called, what's it called? RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, that, you know, folks with ADHD frequently like feel very rejected very quickly, and it has this huge response. But I also, and then also I'm a card carrying extrovert, and I want to feel loved and liked and wanted. And the easiest way to do that is to have a single person who does all that for me, you know? And so I've had and then also, you know, just some really shitty partners like in my formative years who were, you know, planted some bad seeds in me. Like I had a partner who lied about everything all the time, and I'm still have trouble with like even any like issues with honesty. And it's really tough to get, like I've had to do a lot of work to like separate dishonesty from just like, I don't need to know everything, you know, because I don't need to know everything. But sometimes it triggers the same thing, you know. Basically what it all boils down to is, how do I take responsibility for my shit? And how do I find a partner who can do the same? And
Right.
or journey with each other and hold each other accountable. And that's a tall order for both parties.
But not project your shit on each other.
And that.
Yeah, I feel like
Oh.
I've been codependent just once because I have avoidant. My attachment style is avoidance, so it's really hard to be dependent on someone. I do the opposite thing, but I did date someone that is bipolar once, and it was before I was diagnosed, and he was not medicated, and he's bipolar too. And all we did was be depressed together. Like we were just feeding off of each other's depression. And I just recently like reconnected with him like this week after like 8 years of not talking. And I was like, I'm sorry, I was so bad. Like I thought it was horrible because I have like bipolar rage where I can't see. I mean, like I think the misunderstanding with bipolar is that people think it's rapid moods, like mood swings going up and down. But for me, at least, it's that when I feel happy, I'm extremely happy. And when I'm down, I'm depressed. I'm like suicidal. Like it's bad. And when I'm in between, that's being stable. So we're just depressed together and feeling like we couldn't go outside. We were being like agoraphobic together. That relationship was only 2 months, and he was like, I'm so confused why you apologized. It wasn't that bad. He was like, I wasn't that bad. You weren't that bad. It was just like neither of us were in that place to be dating anyone.
So when you feel that you were super bad about that, is that something you more think about when you're in one of those down periods? Because I'm just thinking about like when I'm in that more triggered space, like that's when I think back to like things I've done and things I've said and like, oh gosh, I was so horrible in that relationship and I, or whatever. And I've done the same thing. I've been like, I'm really sorry about whatever. And they're like, really nothing's wrong. Like we had our ups and downs. It was normal, but like I've like beaten myself up for it for ages,
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge with having bipolar in a relationship is that when I get very angry, I should just put my phone away because I get insulting. Like I just throw so many insults to this person because there's my avoidance, like attachment coming into play too, where I'm like, go away from me. Like, I don't want you to hurt me. I don't want you to love me. But at the same time, there's also that rage. I'm like, I'm going to take out all my rage on this person.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad was also bipolar and he did that too with us, with the kids.
Yeah. And like in kind of the general, this podcast today, like, that question is, how do you take responsibility for like your own shit when it comes to mental health in a relationship? Like, what's that line?
Right.
And I know that's something I've been exploring for ages, how much I need someone to be like, to make space for my mental health issues versus what I need to just be 100% autonomous on. And some people believe in that 100% autonomy. And I don't know that I do, because it feels kind of inhumane at a certain point. And I was part of a polyamory like group when I lived in Colorado where they believed in 100% autonomy in all relationships, that like you can have all your partners and you're all completely autonomous and no one gets to say anything about what anyone else is doing. And it's like, it felt very patriarchal, honestly. That everything is, literally they would have people write manuals, like a manual to date me, which like is a fun idea, but like this idea that it was a requirement almost was what kind of grossed me out. And yeah, so finding that balance that like is doable, that you can keep up with, but still is humane, but doesn't cross over to codependent, where you're like needing someone to read your mind.
What would your manual say?
I feel like that's a good first date question.
Your mental health, like for every mental health manual, like for me, like I was trying to be open with this last partner because, this is the first person I fell in love with after being diagnosed from like 6 years ago. Like I haven't dated. I'm so avoidant. Like I've had like less than 10 boyfriends, 3 people that I've been in love with. But yeah, the last year's relationship I had was in 2013 and I thought I was ready. And I obviously wasn't. My manual for being bipolar, I would say, go away from me when I'm manic. just take my phone away, take my credit cards away. I just need to go away. It's not because I don't want to be with you. It's because I'm afraid of what I'm going to say. And then depression is like, when I'm depressed, please just love me. Don't leave me.
When do you tell people about?
But having bipolar?
Yeah. Like how soon? How do you?
I found out that don't tell the person immediately, because that just scares them away. There's this whole like bias of people with bipolar being crazy. They won't even give me a chance. I found out when I was just talking to people online before they met me. So I'm not sure yet. With this last person, I was very surprised because he's the first person that was like not scared of it. He was like, "Oh, I do well with people with bipolar," but I think he didn't know how bad mine can get, because I was stable when I met him, and I'm just telling him it gets really bad. Like I have hallucinations.
I'm really interested in that I do well with people with bipolar statement. Like,
yeah, that's
like there's some, I'm like, what does that mean? Because
well, he's dated
like,
other people that have bipolar.
Yeah. To answer the question, so for me, the ADHD and anxiety stuff, I don't feel that uncomfortable sharing pretty early on, but the PTSD stuff, that's where, so I didn't get to, so I lived in Colorado until 2 Novembers ago. And then I moved back up here where I grew up. And I got diagnosed with PTSD like a few months later. And after that relationship that I was in Colorado, I took some time. I dated myself for a while, And so I didn't start actually dating again, which AKA means the apps and like the Zoom dates and whatever, until the pandemic was like pretty firmly started. So, March, April, neck of the woods. And so that was my first time dating with that new diagnosis. And I was in a really rough, most of the pandemic, that kind of like February to October, November, I was pretty dicey mental health wise. I was not doing well. And so when I was trying to date and stuff, I would start talking about the PTSD stuff in the first date, and I would trigger myself. Regardless of if that person was cool or pretty or fun or any of those things, I was done at no fault of theirs. And so I realized that I needed to be way more careful with how I told my story, if I was going to want to be able to date someone just on like regardless of what they thought of me. And so it's something that I've started kind of, I'll kind of like sprinkle it. I'll say like, I'm dealing with some trauma stuff, but I have responsibility for it, and I kind of try and take care of their feelings like preemptively in case they like feel a certain way about it. And I say, but we'll get to that later. Like I kind of say like, we can talk about that another time, because it gets it makes me more uncomfortable, and then I project onto them. And so that's the one that I have to be really careful about.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea. You just gave me an idea of like, when I tell people my mental illnesses, to tell them what that means too. Like with PTSD, like I didn't know this person, the last person I dated, he has alcoholism, but I don't think he knew that he had PTSD too. We found that out together, because when he was asleep, he had night terrors and he would scream. He would like he would say, "Help me," and all this stuff. And we both triggered each other by what he was going through. Like tell people like what to expect with that.
Sorry, I got it all wrong. Yeah. We're gonna say something?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot. It's going to be interesting to learn about all the new diagnoses that people are going to come out with post-pandemic.
Oh God.
Even with mine, I'm like, I just have bipolar and anxiety. And then like Daniel, you're like saying, I think I have PTSD now. I think a lot of people are going to come out of this with PTSD.
Definitely.
And to be clear, the trauma stuff came from when I was in my master's degree. It wasn't from the pandemic itself, just to clarify. But I was suffering a lot during the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff came up for a lot of people.
Yeah. A lot of old things have surfaced and new things are going to be surfacing. Like I learned that I have abandonment issues during this pandemic. So I'm working through that too.
Yeah, it's fucking rough, man. But we're doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing our best.
I haven't gotten diagnosed with anything except for like developmental childhood trauma. But there's definitely some PTSD in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. That's like the go-to like book on trauma. Have either of you read that one?
Mm-mm.
One of the things it talks about in it is that like there's just this like one major umbrella PTSD diagnosis, and really there's multiple forms of trauma that should be treated in different ways, and it just hasn't gotten a lot of traction. And there's some stuff with like there's some like specific differences with like PTSD, like complex this or like types or whatever, but like by and large, it's still just that one set of letters. Whereas for children, PTSD shows up in these certain ways, and instead they get diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD, all this stuff, and they're giving them tons of meds for ADHD, for this, that, and the other thing, and it's not working. And the reason why is because they don't have it. They don't have ADHD. They're having hyperactivity and or they're having inability to like keep task and things like that because of trauma. And so there's all this stuff with that. And so regardless of the actual like diagnosis, regardless of the actual thing that happens, it's like what's happening and what does it feel like? And are you able to do and be what you want to do and want to be? And that's and especially in dating, which is like so difficult already, it's just it gets real painful real fast, especially when we don't have a lot of cultural language around mental health.
Oh, sorry. Daniel, can you explain how your PTSD manifested?
As in like where it came from, or like what symptoms I have?
Yeah, where it came from and what it feels like for you.
I'd rather not go into my story. Just I wasn't prepared for that. But
Yeah.
I can talk about like how it manifests. That I mean, I have a lot of paranoia. That's one of the big ones where I'm frequently thinking, like if someone doesn't email me back or doesn't text me back, or like especially people within my field of music therapy, I start telling myself like they know you're a bad person, like they think you're bad, and like I get really stuck and like really freaked out. And so I've like had trouble, like I just tell myself a lot of stories with that. It manifests with dating where I just really with people in general, I just don't trust anyone to tell me the truth. I'm constantly trying to mind read people, like, and so like for instance, I work a Zoom job, so I don't get to see my coworkers. And so like all the time I just assume my coworkers are mad at me or something with no evidence, but like I also don't have any evidence it's not true because I don't get to see them. And then we'll have a meeting and like clearly they're fine. But like I just spiral into these places because I just have so many experiences of people not being honest with me, where people will be like, oh, hey, we're firing you from this thing because of stuff you've been doing for the last year, and we've gotten a lot of complaints that we haven't talked to you about. But we're going to have you work in this other department for 6 months where you can ruminate about it all day, every day. And you have to play it cool because we're still paying you, and like, so I've just learned to really feel like I need to babysit everyone's feelings in professional spaces and dating spaces, things like that, because people will turn and like, yeah, just like really do harmful shit.
So sorry.
Go ahead.
What helps you get out of those spirals? Like, how do you get out? How do you get yourself out? And do you? Or does it have to run its course?
It depends. When it's, I'm trying to have more healing. Okay, so okay. With trauma stuff, do you all know about like neuroplasticity?
Yeah.
So in trauma, and in a lot of these things, but in trauma, we're repeating these cycles of a certain set of beliefs or a certain set of actions that make it still happen, or we avoid even going there. So we keep that same pathway very strong, that it's bad things happening. But then once in a while, you have a situation where you're doing the work, or you're like thinking this is going to be okay, and you have a reparative experience where someone is open and communicative with me, where they do tell me the truth and what they're thinking, and then it just like helps like build that other pathway just a little bit, And so I'm trying to, for instance, with the I have friends where I say, can I do reality checks with you? And they're like, yeah, of course. And so like I can text them like, hey, we had this interaction the other day. Like I have a friend where recently they had me come to a party at their house, like in their backyard, and meet their friends. And it was really fun because I was like making people laugh. And it was like my first time making people laugh in like a year and a half. And like it makes me feel really good about myself when I make people laugh. And it was just, and I was meeting these people and all this stuff. And I convinced myself over the next week that like I said wrong things. They all hated me, that like none of them want to see me again, that I really embarrassed myself. And even like stuff into my gender identity, like you're faking it, like this isn't real, like, you know, stuff like that. And then I saw that friend and I said, hey, I just want to check with you because I'm having a lot of these paranoid thoughts. I'm not sure if they're real. And they just kind of said like, no, people enjoyed hanging out with you. You didn't do anything wrong. Like I invited you to hang out again. I wouldn't have done that, you know? And so like building a safe relationship with someone where I feel comfortable and in that vulnerability of doing reality checks has been really helpful for me. I also have a best friend who lives far away. I wish, you know, it'd be nice to have someone in town like this, but like I have a best friend who's just very straightforward with me and has been very honest with me for years, and I trust her. So basically, really being careful with the relationships I have, which of course makes dating harder too, but being really careful so that I know I can trust people. That being said, I can have all these restorative experiences, you know, 1, 2, 5, 7 experiences and get like a little further ahead, but then I'll have one really damaging one that puts me all the way back or puts me 6 steps back when I'm 7 steps forward. So it's like, even I had one that was kind of both like 2 weeks ago where someone got in touch with me, or I got in touch with a friend, and basically it was a situation where she's like, hey, I heard these bad things about you. What's your side? And part of my trauma stuff is like people spreading false things about me in ways that I have no control over and continue not to. And me just trying to get over it and help. And it's been just super scary and painful. And I've like mostly, well, whatever. I've gotten away from my professional organizations and things because it's just too triggering to be around colleagues. And this person said, I'd like to hear your side. And so I went through, and it was a very triggering experience to like retell all this story. But then she was like, I'm so thankful we got to talk about this because I had no idea. So it was reparative in that I got that I told my story and she believed me, and she was someone who I really cared about and didn't even know was avoiding me and like all this stuff. But because it was so triggering and because of that information she gave me, here 2 weeks later, I'm still ruminating about it. I'm still like that level 1 triggered where like all the time I'm just very much more sensitive, you know? So, but in that conversation, I was like at a level 8, 9, and I was able to bring it down to that level 2 within an hour, which like last summer literally I would have been heightened for at least a week or 2. And I was able to calm down within an hour. So like it was reparative that I got to see myself do better quicker than I had in a long time.
That's awesome.
So that's the long answer. The short answer is building restorative experiences in safe ways and a good therapist.
Yes. Good therapist.
Yeah. So PTSD is like when you have something traumatic happen and then you're reliving it through like a certain event or trigger.
It can manifest in a lot of ways. There are triggering things in my day, but like by and large, it's just there. Like it doesn't have to be turned on. It's just there that I'm like, you know, there have been times where I've been scared to take a shower not because there's anything wrong with the shower, but because that's where I ruminate every time that I get stuck in those cycles. And then like the rest of my morning is ruined. And it's like, if I keep myself occupied, if I keep watching YouTube, keep looking at Facebook, or last summer, just being high all the time, that was like the way I coped, but also kept me in a bad cycle. And it really held me back.
Yeah. I think part of my like avoidant detachment style is I've never been diagnosed with PTSD, but I had a physically and emotionally abusive childhood, but most of it was physical. And I have a great fear of talking to strangers and people or anyone that gets angry. Like I don't know them and they get angry, but it's not even like a mad angry. It's just like people that saying, oh, I don't want to talk to you today, you know, that I don't know, or someone going, oh, did you just cut me in line? And I get like so fearful. I just shut down and I become anxious. And with this last relationship, I mean, I had another relationship that he was physically abusive. He hit me a lot. And I just took it. And I didn't know this was over 10 years ago. I thought I was over this relationship. And with this guy, he was drunk all the time too. And then with this recent guy being an alcoholic, the first weekend I saw him become drunk, it just, I snapped and I found out he was cheating on me and I hit him. It was like I went into this like, fight or flight mode and I went full on fight and it felt so guilty afterwards, but I didn't know that I still had that, trauma from the past because it just put me back into that place where I was getting hit by partners and I just felt like I had to like hit him, like I had to like just defend myself when he wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting there being drunk.
Yeah.
Which is that, do you think that's like kind of describes what PTSD is?
Well, there's clearly a trigger and then a response, and it's something that you feel is unhealthy, and so I can't diagnose anything.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, it sounds like you haven't healed from those situations. Is that accurate so far?
I don't think I have coped with the relationship that was from 10 years ago.
Yeah. So it seems like something good to address in therapy,
Yeah.
because the bottom line is, if you haven't done the work to heal from something, you probably haven't healed from that something. Healing doesn't usually happen by accident, in my experience. There's certain things you get over with over time, but something like that, you gotta look at it head on, But as an avoidant person, that might be tough. Avoidance makes it really hard to address things.
I just avoid love, but I definitely don't avoid taking care of myself because avoiding people, we are selfish. we want to work on our career, being happy ourselves, and no one else can make us happy. We're not going to make you happy. We want alone time.
Love it.
Do either of you do EMDR or DBT?
I've done EMDR and I've done ART, which is like a cousin to EMDR. It's called accelerated resolution therapy. It still's got the back and forth and but it's just a different process. And ART worked really well for me.
I've heard about ART a little bit. I don't know a lot about it, but yeah, EMDR is awesome.
No, I want to try EMDR. I've been in cognitive-based therapy for 6 years. It's been great for depression, but I think I need something more to address the trauma in my life.
There is something called TFCBT, or trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, which is more kind of in that standard traditional cognitive behavioral therapy model, and is specific for trauma. And then you got EMDR, ART, kind of those other things. And I know I have some colleagues that think EMDR and like all that stuff. Apparently the data is that like it's all kind of equally effective. But I just know for me, and if you want to really go down the rabbit hole, there's a certain point with CBT that it gets kind of white supremacist. Yeah, because of just like the modeling of how we're supposed to be able to work through things is very much based in that like cognitive reframing. But when you get into oppression, there isn't real. I can't cognitively reframe my oppression, and none of us can. It's something that's outside of our bodies, and there's a certain point where therapy becomes training people to just cope with oppression versus their anxiety, depression, things like that. And so there's certain things where that like cognitive approach doesn't quite make it. And especially the further you get from, cis, het, white, man, middle class, yada, yada, able-bodied, all that. But that's another podcast.
It definitely is. So I had a friend, ask people for questions and stuff. So I had a friend, she asked a couple questions.
Cool.
Some of them you've already answered, but I'll just ask, what's the best way to be there for a partner who's dealing with mental illness? So like your partner, if you had a partner, what would the best way for them to show up for you be?
Be patient, do research, because like so many people don't know about bipolar besides Law and Order. I've had someone ask me, so you kill people? I'm like, no. I don't kill people, but no, no, like I'm medicated. I feel like don't treat me like I'm diseased. I have my own personality. I have my mental illnesses, but I'm still a person that's autonomous. Um, be patient, be there for me, and do your research.
Yeah, someone doing their research about like the generalities of my mental health stuff is such a loving act. I've had one partner who really like literally was teaching me things. And she's like, oh, did you know that this is a common thing with it? I'm like, I had no idea. And that has been my life for 20 years. Wow. So that's such a loving act to learn more about what someone's dealing with without them having to teach you. That being said, having open, honest conversations about, because like my needs with my diagnoses are different than someone else with the same diagnoses, and so kind of along with what Palina said, that like I'm an individual with these things, don't just like lump me into some category of like, oh, I dated someone like that once, and it's like, well, hold on, there are things here that will be the same, absolutely, but it's going to be a Venn diagram. That patience piece, and it's really tough because I mean, I'm kind of almost at a stage in my life where I don't really fuck with people without mental health issues anymore because like, it's really hard for people to get it. To get that it's just, you can't just turn it off. And it'd be super wonderful. I wish I could turn it off.
Right.
There are certain aspects of it that like I can see, like there's like some superpowers to like having some mental health issues, like people with anxiety and depression tend to have much more accurate self-awareness than typical folks, or people with ADHD like are able to do, it's really clear what we love with ADHD because it's a thing we can actually focus on for extended periods of time. And there's other, fun things with that. But by and large, with dating, it's, it's about like learning, talking, being honest, and yeah, I don't know, and taking responsibility.
Accepting me for who I am. I think people need to, I mean, when you're with a partner, you're gonna accept who that person is no matter what. I mean, everyone has mental illnesses. It's just that we're diagnosed. I mean, I think I'm better off than someone who's not diagnosed and unmedicated and doesn't go to therapy.
Right.
No, there's a point there that like that we know what we're working with, and there's a lot of people, and everyone's got the things that make them tick, the things that are frustrating, the things that are good, the things that are tough, yada yada. And it's just ours are at a certain level that it's diagnosable, and it's something that is causing a lot of trouble. So just like any relationship, we got to learn what our partner is working with and learn to love and accept that. But it's complicated, and just being honest with what we can do and being really careful with that savior complex, because I don't want to be someone's project, and I don't want to be dealt with baby gloves. I don't want people to be scared of talking to me. I can take responsibility for my feelings. I can take responsibility for what I'm working with. But I just want us to like figure it out,
Yeah. And it's true. We all have our own shit. So that kind of goes into the next question. There's such a stigma towards mental illness. What do you think could be said to help break the stigma within the realm of dating?
I think like what Daniel said, don't compare us to someone else. It's just like the guy I dated was like, I'm great with people with bipolar. It's like, well, we're not all the same. It's like whoever you dated, that people that you've dated with bipolar, I mean, obviously we're not together, so you couldn't handle it. That's all.
Yeah, with breaking stigma, honestly, the first thing I think of is just like film and television, because so many people, that's how so many of us learn about people we don't get to meet every day, and if there were just more realistic depictions of mental health, and honestly, more importantly, depictions of mental health where it's not the character's entire story. Like it's not a story about a man's working through depression and suicidality. It's like just a character on the show being like, so I'm having an episode, or whatever it is. And it's just like, oh yeah, like this person is dealing with that. And it's just like, it's not an entire arc of a character. It's just an aspect of a character who has whole other aspects of, you know, what they're doing in the story, because that's what it is. I am a person working through life in my own story, and I have these challenges, and it's not my entire identity. It's not what I do for a job. It's just something I'm actively dealing with every day, you know, which is meaningful and important, and doesn't have to be my whole personality, you know?
I do want to say for people that want to date me in particular, like I would tell them, know what you're getting into and know what your boundaries are. You know, if someone doesn't want to date someone with bipolar after, you know, after what they know about it, then don't. It's just like I could have easily been like, I don't want to date anyone else with alcoholism because of, so I've
Mm-hmm.
dated so many alcoholics, but it's something that I'm fine with. Not everyone's the same, but I could also, you know, say I don't want to date anyone with alcoholism. That's, you know, a boundary that I can set for myself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What other questions? I'm a little spaced out today. Sorry, guys. So here's a good one, I guess. Like, can mental illness be a forgivable reason for poor treatment of partners?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
No.
Yeah, the short answer is no,
Right.
but but it also depends, because you know, how do we make room for someone when they're not at their best in any relationship? You know, in any relationship, there are things that we bring to the table when we're not at our best that are harmful, or that aren't fun, or that are unkind, or anything along that spectrum. And when you have specific mental health diagnoses, those things can be more dramatic, they can be more frequent. Um, and of course, every dyad, every partnership or triad, or like whatever your relationship is, like, is going to be different. And every time it's a new thing to navigate with new things. So I don't think mental health is an excuse to be harmful to someone, but I think it is something to make room for, and to what's the word? Just another thing to navigate. Because like, for instance, Paulina, you said, like, when I'm in this space, take away my phone, whatever. Like, I don't think a partner should take away your phone. I think you need to have a plan to get rid of your phone, or you hand the phone to the partner saying, hide this. Or like, I feel like, you know, me in my mental health space, I need to be the one like holding the reins to like how I'm taking responsibility for it at as best as I can. But yeah, but I would never say like, oh, I have this diagnosis, so that therefore the thing I did to you, you need to forgive that. Like, because I couldn't control myself. Like, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a line between an abusive relationship and then, you know, how much you can take from a person's mental illness. I mean, I think there's a difference. It's like all about your own boundaries. You know, if you have someone like me, like I hit someone, like my own boundary is going to be if someone hits me, whether they have alcoholism, bipolar, PTSD, whatever, that's my boundary because I'm going to fight back. It's going to be an abusive relationship from both ends. We're just going to be both like abusing each other.
Right.
And then there's also just, I mean, having a mental illness doesn't mean you're a shitty person. People are just shitty. And that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I try and do is not see things as binaries. You know, it's not abusive or not. It's all a spectrum. You know, it's not healthy relationship or not. It's a spectrum. And like, and even with the way, so it's like, so even going back to the original question, like, is mental health challenges an excuse for being harmful in a relationship? No, it isn't. And on that spectrum of like harmful acts in a relationship, anything from like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about this important thing, which is something that is really common, you know, in a lot of these diagnoses. There's issues with memory and paying attention and things like that. So I do think there needs to be room for things like that. So it depends on what the harmful thing is. When it's things that are like active, like Palina, you said, like punching, like physical violence, like that's definitely a boundary that can't be crossed. And also there's also the question of what are my boundaries for myself, let alone what are my boundaries with my partner, you know, and what do I do when I cross my own boundaries? How do I handle that without spiraling, you know?
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're a sociopath, is that a mental illness? And narcissism, is that a mental illness? Those are just shitty people. I mean, I don't think there's any
Mental
excuse
illness, though.
to act that way.
Well, they're personality disorders, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And even narcissism is a scale. There is a narcissistic scale, you know? And so there are
Yeah.
people, but you know, yeah, when you get into psychopathy and like narcissism and things like, sorry, like being a psychopath and like narcissism and stuff, like that gets into that, like if someone's not having empathy for another person, how do we deal with that? You know, especially in a capitalist society where those skills or those personality traits make it easier to be successful, make it easier to make money and things like that. So they're rewarded frequently for those on a capitalistic way, even if like in relationship it becomes really harmful. Like how do
Yeah.
we handle that?
Me personally, I couldn't be with someone that has borderline, antisocial, like all the personality disorders pretty much, because you can get better, but it's always gonna be there, and you can't really medicate it really. I mean, sometimes, like you said, it's like a spectrum, but those are no way. I know I can't handle that.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable saying like carte blanche that like there are diagnoses that I would never be interested in dating. It really comes down to what people are putting into it. And there are people, I've known people with borderline personality disorder who like are putting in work, are doing their best and like are really trying to do better, you know? And so like we need to, I think if I want people to have space for me and my mental health stuff, I want to be able to make space for everyone else's as well. But it just comes down to taking responsibility, because I'm not interested in dating someone with, doesn't matter what their diagnosis is, if they don't take responsibility for what they can, you know?
You're much more open than I am.
A lot of narcissists
Yeah.
don't even.
But I did date a sociopath. That was my first boyfriend.
So did
He has
I.
ruined my life. Up until to this day, he has still ruined my life.
Yeah, that stuff is hard to heal from. It fucks with your head.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's also hard to like, you can't really tell, really. It's hard to tell when someone's a sociopath. So I probably dated more than one. But if I knew that he was diagnosed with it, I probably, I don't know.
Would you have gotten out? Like, because that's the other thing is like so often in relationships, we bond, we connect, and then you find out this stuff and you're like, that's fine, you know? And
If I knew like beforehand, no, but like if they were diagnosed with it and they're working towards it, it depends. Like this, there's a scale. There's like, you know, really bad ones, and there's the ones that are like lawyers and doctors, and maybe, I don't know.
I dated one and he told me like while we were dating, and I still stayed for a little bit longer. But it was a mind fuck.
Oh no, this one was one that was who's like, so as you pass, or like Dexter, they kill people. He was just like refusing it. He hates therapy. Oh, like,
yeah,
no.
I do
I
want
need affection. I need love and caring, and that was not him at all.
Mm-hmm. Empathy.
I also wonder how gender plays in. You know, you know, men fresh out the gate, like engaging with therapy, engaging with self-awareness, engaging with things like that is such, for some reason, such a high bar to cross. And I know for me, like on my journey, like it's always been very confusing for me engaging with men, and I don't date men. So with both of your stories, like it's just going to be a different game than what I've played, you know. And so when it comes to sociopathic behavior, narcissism, etc., I know the person I dated who lied about everything, looking back, I don't know what I would diagnose her with, but like she clearly didn't see any harm in all the harm she was causing, or she didn't care. And she's been very successful, like, you know, just what I've seen. She got in touch with me like a year ago and was like, hey, I saw an old email from you, and like sent me like 3 messages on like one on Facebook, on email, like just came out of nowhere after I hadn't talked to her in years, like 7, 8, 9 years. And I had no idea how to respond. And finally I just said, hey, I consider you an abusive partner. I've had to do a lot of work and I'm still not healed from that relationship.
Mhm.
And I'm not proud of things that I brought to that relationship either, but like, please don't contact me, you
Mhm.
know? And the thing is, I was prepared for her to be super defensive. I was prepared for her to maybe like apologize. I was prepared for like those kind of things. But what I got was within a minute, she responded, I know it can be hard to express yourself, or like something like that. And that was it. Which, first off, not true. I don't know if you heard me in this entire hour, but like I'm pretty competent at expressing myself.
Yeah.
And I was just it was even more confusing. I'm like, how did you find the perfect response? And it turns out that is an abuse tactic, the non-response. You know, when you say something big and intense and it's like, okay,
It sounds manipulative to me.
deeply. So I got that language. I was like, okay, so she hasn't changed. Because that was also this hope that she would say, wow, yeah, I lied so much that I'm the way better now. No, she's just like, now what is she doing? She's like a divinity leader on a college campus. Like she's like leading young people in like a religious space. I'm like, oh God.
Yep. They're out there.
So yeah, so it's
No, I would not date a sociopath again, because when I dated that sociopath, I was 18, super, 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 super detached. He never knew anything personal about me. And that's why we were together for 3 years, because he didn't care. He didn't want to get to know me. And I didn't want anyone to get to know me. And I've changed.
Perfect. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's up to us, you know, to take care of ourselves and to make sure that we're opening up to the people that actually care about, you know, us opening up and sharing and connecting. So
Yeah. I mean, not to say that like sociopaths can't find love. I mean, there's probably sociopaths listening to this right now. He's married now. He has a wife. Like, it works for them. You know,
Mhm. Yeah,
it's
I
just
mean,
not for me.
they definitely can obviously have, you know, normal lives or whatever. But yeah, I think especially if you're an empath, which I think we all probably are, being with a sociopath is very fucking challenging.
well, even the term empath makes me bristle a little bit because I've known narcissistic people who call themselves an empath.
Right.
Mhm.
And it can be and because at its, you know, if someone isn't self-aware but believes they're an empath, really they're saying, I'm deciding how you feel and agreeing with myself.
Mhm.
You know, and so like
Mhm.
I do believe that I'm empathic. I do think I feel a lot of things with people, and I'm really careful not to assume that I'm right, you know.
Yeah.
Because but again, like I mentioned before, I'm constantly trying to mind read people because I'm so scared that people are lying to me. So like there's a whole circle there of like me not achieving my highest functioning self. But yeah, like even there's a lot of this terminology that could become problematic when put into like I said, everything's a spectrum, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empathy is a
I
beautiful.
agree with you, Daniel, so much. Like, I don't call myself an empath, but I'm very empathetic and compassionate. But
Mhm.
I don't know what other people are feeling.
Yeah. It's
I don't. Nobody does. I mean, really. But just like, you know, it seems like we're all sort of people that care about what's going on and want to, you know, hear and listen. And that's what I mean
Sensitive.
by, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
mean by that. Like, I'm definitely a highly sensitive person. I know that for sure.
Yeah, sensitive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empath. That's what my last ex calls himself, is empathic. But no, he watched my moods. He watched me. He watched my, like, he observed me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
He's observant, but I wouldn't say he's empath.
It gave him the information of like how to, you know, work with you. I'm sure. Sociopaths watch people too. Whatever, you know, we all watch people. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, yeah. So where are you at right now, Palina, with like the breakup and everything?
I'm so exhausted. I'm at the I'm still bargaining, I'm still thinking like it's so fucking weird. I'm gonna sound even more like mentally ill, I guess, in quotes. Like it's just like I felt like there was this psychic bond with us, but I don't know if because he was lying about it. Because I would say things like when we first met, I would be like, "Did you tell me you were at the river with your dad?" And he was like, "No, I was like 2 days ago, but I didn't tell you." So I was thinking like, "Oh, we are psychic." And then when I was blocking his number, he texted me, "I don't feel your presence anymore. Like, I don't feel you anymore." I'm like, "Oh, there's that psychic connection again." Or there's times where I've woken up with panic attacks or anxiety going, "Corey, Corey," like just like thinking like I was so scared because this is how he lives most of the time is being fearful, but it's probably just me already knowing that he lives, fearfully, that he's always like in fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of me that like makes me feel attached to him, but I'm also like during this conversation thinking like we both made mistakes, you know we're just not meant to be together. There's someone else. We have this great bond. We have a lot of things in common. He's hilarious, he's funny, he's so attractive, he's pansexual. I love pansexual men because they're so open. He's so open, but he was like everything I wanted, except he doesn't tell the truth. And that's like, I don't trust him. So I think like the next person I'll find like all those same qualities that I've been wanting, but someone who's honest and just tells me the truth. That's all I wanted was his time and honesty. So I
And
think
that's
I'm moving
not,
on from it. Hopefully, I'm just tired right now. I'm my bipolar. My moods have been so fucking bad during this pandemic, and everyone that I've spoken to that has bipolar have been cycling like crazy. Like most of the time, I've gone maybe 3 years without having an episode, and during the pandemic, it's every 2 months. It's going from mania to depression to hey, I'm okay, but most of it is being manic. I probably cycled like 6 times already in the past year, and this year I think we're only in May. I think I've cycled like 3 times.
Mm.
So I'm just tired of it. I think I'm ready for post pandemic. I think that after the pandemic people are gonna go crazy and like date a lot of people, and then there's people that have realized that we do want just one partner. Like me, like I'm like really like separating from being having the attached like avoidance attachment. I'm like, I want a life partner. I want that one person I can count on, and I'm ready to like open up and spill my heart and just be like, come into my life. I don't want to be scared anymore. Like, I love you, you love me.
God, isn't it so fucking scary? I
No,
totally feel
I'm
you.
not
I feel
scared
you
of it.
on
I'm
that.
ready for it.
I know,
I
but
am
I feel
ready
you
for
on
it
the
in a
wanting
few
to open
months,
up.
not right now. But I'm ready to love again. Not right now, because I'm still in love with the last person, and that's not fair. I don't do rebounds.
Yeah, yeah.
So can I ask you a question, Palina, about your current situation?
Yes.
You mentioned you're still talking every day. So how can you do the healing you need to do when almost nothing has changed besides
Yeah.
the wall?
It's been 2 days now since we haven't spoken, but ever since we started talking online, we've spoken every day in like multiple times a day. When he was in treatment for 2 months, we would talk like 5 times a day. So it has trickled down. So it's been 2 days so far, but I'm hoping for like to go a week,
You're
and
hoping
then
for or you've
yeah.
named? Because like,
Hmm?
have you set a boundary with him? Have you set a boundary with yourself about like how to move forward? Or are you just kind of like playing it by ear?
I've tried to. I mean, I had a friend take my phone and I was like, okay, I want you to like block his number and make sure his number is not anywhere in my called list, missed called list, and block his mom's number. But I still get text messages from him, and I knew I couldn't trust him. I was like, block, I can't do it. I can't cut myself off from him. And it's not him that's contacting me. It's just both of us. I mean, my therapist asked me today, he was like, so do you think it's healthy to talk every day? I was like, I think no. I think, But for now, I mean, like I said, he's like the only person that is showing me love. My parents, my dad's dead. My mom's a narcissist. She's cold. I don't have family. I haven't seen my friends in person for ages, but it's different, having a friendship kind of love and then someone who's like, I love you, I support you. Like, he's the only person right now that still cares about me, that I feel like that's still
Mm.
talking to me.
Would you say that it's an acceptable level of pain for the very minimal level of love you're getting?
I think for now, yeah.
Okay.
I know it's not healthy right now, but like we haven't spoken for 2 days and like to some people that's like nothing, but for us, it's a long time.
Yeah.
And to like small baby steps, make it 3 days and then make it 4 days. And then eventually like 5 days, I'm sure like every now and then, like every 2 weeks, he'll like pop on and just be like, hi, or we still follow each other on Instagram. I look at his art. I think slowly it will trickle down to like every 2 months and then we won't be talking at all. Yeah, I need to cut it off. I really do need to cut it off because I
Yeah.
still have like this thought in my head where we're supposed to be together. He's my soulmate,
Yeah.
It
but
might
he's
just be a
not.
gradual thing, though, like you're saying. It might be a gradual thing where you gradually cut it off because, you know.
In my
Yeah.
experience, when relationships have that much similarity to substance use, where it becomes addictive, where it's this like chemical thing, I feel like I can't get anywhere else, and it turns me into someone that I don't recognize. I Trickling down isn't usually an option in my experience, and I honor and respect whatever process you use, but yeah, I that sounds like a lot of pieces to something that can be pretty dangerous to my mental health, and my
Mhm.
ability to just like function in a way that I can stand by and be proud of.
I've never had any troubles in the past, just like cold turkey cut off people. Like, I don't know if you follow MBTI or like socionics. I'm an INFJ. We do the INFJ door slam. We just cut people off. That's me. But
Yeah,
for him, for some reason, I have not been able to cut him off.
I
Interesting.
bet you will. I bet you will at some point. You'll just be like, I'm fucking done. You're just not
Hmm.
there yet.
Well,
Yeah.
I
It's
can't.
only been 2 weeks.
I guess for me, it's in relationships. Sometimes the language turns into like, well, okay, sorry, I'm thinking about it now.
Come here.
It can be kind of that like, do whatever you need to do, fuck the other person's feelings, like do whatever you need to do. And I try really hard to do something in as communicative as a way as possible. I don't believe in ghosting, for instance. Like it's really difficult for me to do the I'm someone who says like, hey, I really enjoyed meeting you, but I didn't feel any romantic attraction in our date. So like I really wish you the best in your dating journey, but and I'm happy to be friends, or like whatever I'm feeling, because how do we find a way to respectfully honor where someone is at, instead of kind of waiting till I have the strength to cut things off cold turkey, because that also doesn't sound
Yeah.
like him.
I've written so many like goodbye texts to him. So many goodbyes and stuff. I just already just sent him another goodbye from like 2 days ago. I'm like, I love you and I appreciate that, blah blah blah. But then it's like, I think part of it why it's so hard to say goodbye to him is because we never broke up. Like he never broke up with me completely, and he's still telling me that he's in love with me and that he loves me
Ugh.
more than this other person. So
Why is
it's
he
like,
holding the reins to the entire relationship?
hmm?
Like, why is it based on what he decided? Why is it based on what he told you? What about what you like?
Right.
You name your needs and your boundaries directly.
Yeah, I thought of that too, but it's still like I feel the same. I feel like I would be fine with him being with someone else. Like he has been fine with me, like saying, you can be with other guys. And I'm like, I'm fine with him being with this other woman, but he hasn't told her, probably because she wouldn't be okay with it. So I'm like, I'm taking myself out of it. It's like, I don't think she's gonna be okay with you dating both of us, even though I would be okay, but I need to like move on because I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be the other woman
It's not good for your mental health. I mean, obviously.
No, it's just a shitty thing to do. Like, people have told me, like, they're like, you should warn her, you should tell her about it. I'm like, it's not my business. It's not my place. That's his. He needs to tell her. I'm not going to be the bearer of that news.
So much unnecessary drama too. I mean, like,
Yeah, like, who knows? Like, maybe they're supposed to, like, be together. Like, maybe they'll work out for years on end, you know? He doesn't want to be with me. So that's it. Like, but I do want to just, like, stay friends. There's also that connection too, part of it. It's just like, I've never had such a strong connection with this person. He knows everything about me. He knows I'm a pretty neurotic person, besides, you know, just the mental illnesses. My personality is just crazy. And his is too. I think that's part of it too, is that, like, no one knows me like I as well as he does, and I don't feel comfortable showing my full self to other people.
You know, this makes me think of something. One of my favorite, so in polyamory, there's a ton of fun terms, like there's just a ton of fun language. And one of my favorite ones is called the game changer relationship. And it's not just polyamory, this can be in monogamy as well. But basically, it's when you date someone who treats you in a certain way or sees you in a certain way, or they bring something new to the table that is so great and you've never experienced it before. And after that relationship, you're never going back. After, you know, someone who like actually honors your mental health needs, someone who actually like asks before doing a thing, like someone who treats you in a way you've never been treated, but you've begged for in past relationships, or you've asked for, and you never go back because you're like, oh, this is achievable and can be effortless. And so I'm wondering, in your relationship that you're having and you're figuring out right now, what are the pieces that you can say, I was treated in this way, I felt loved in this way, and I can take those as things that are doable, meaningful, exciting, and I can find again, versus saying, I'm never going to find that again. It was just him. He's the only one. Because I'll tell you, like, he's not. Like, there's so many people on this planet. And like, I've had that feeling so many times where I'm like, wow, this was so amazing. I'll never, and I'm usually the breakup-er in relationships. I tend to like cut things off. And even something I told myself at the beginning of the pandemic when I was feeling really lonely, and getting kind of sad about, getting very sad about not dating and not feeling connected. I literally made it my phone background where it said, like, I have loved and been loved fiercely and beautifully. And even if I never date again the rest of my life, like, I've experienced these feelings that some people get to experience.
I'm gonna, you guys, I want to end this video, but we should keep talking after. Yeah.
Sure.
Some stuff. All right. Well, we're gonna say goodbye.
Okay.
And
bye. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for talking about being normal.
KPI.org.